We realized Satoru Abe hadn't had a museum retrospective in 25 years. It was a clear choice that we should really do that while Satoru was still alive and he could be honored by all the artists and art enthusiasts who love him. He was just incredibly generous. He both shared the majority of the work in his house, anything we wanted to include so that we would get a full sense of his whole career, but also told us memories he had of sometimes when he created those works. When Satoru is living in New York between the mid-50s and the mid-60s, he appeared in the cover of Art in America, where curators from the Guggenheim, HoMA, and directors are basically choosing who the most influential artists of the time are, and they chose Satoru for the part of sculpture. He worked very, very closely with the Sculpture Center in New York. He had a very big exhibition at MoMA too of new sculpture, and basically anyone who was an important sculptor at the time in New York is in this exhibition. He is there along with them. He starts operating within a series of motifs based on sketches he produced while he was in New York, and these are forms that you can see him repeat basically over the decades of his life. They're all somewhat natural, but also kind of abstracted. So you can see, for example, a male and a female figure, but only in outline. You start seeing trees and some of the specific forms that his trees take on in sculpture and in print and painting during his life. You can already see kind of the beginning of those tree forms within those sketches.
What's really interesting about his work is that even though he was trying out all these different materials, there was still, he always kept his voice. His artistic voice and vision would always shine through these different media. We were interested in having viewers discover more about his work. I'm not only just looking at his work chronologically, but looking at the different influences that he picked up over the years and his different motifs and designs that were recurring throughout his career, and not only the designs, but that he would produce in drawing, in painting, in sculpture, but looking at how they changed through those different media. That was really important to us when we were organizing that exhibition. Yeah, so I think that early on, when he was working on his series of early paintings, the white paintings, in New York especially, the figure is very prominent, the human figure is prominent. But later on, when he returned to Hawaii, and even before that, he started sort of replacing the human figure with natural forms, and especially tree forms. And he had explained and said that sometimes for him, the human figure became too personal or too individualized, and he was interested in maybe more of a broader sort of universal idea of the human presence, and the human presence always within nature. So you'll see tree forms that are very similar to the shape of a torso, for instance. A torso with shoulders and arms become like the branches of the tree. Or human figures will be recognizable, but they'll be enmeshed within leaves and branches and thorns. His work really has that strong sense of that connection of the human figure within nature.
the works he was doing when we met him, which were works that he had started doing during the COVID years, were also very different. They were completely abstract, didn't include any of the figurative elements.
Satoru not only was known on Oahu, but of course on Maui, and there are several public sculptures here as well. And just to bring the work here to Maui, so that more of his fans and more of our visitors and residents can really see more of the depth and breadth of his work is really important.
Satoru and his family knew that Reaching for the Sun was slated to travel to Maui Arts and Cultural Center after it concluded its run at the Honolulu Museum of Art. And while Satoru sadly passed away before the show came to Maui, his voice and his role in the planning stages of the exhibition are still very much present in this iteration. We were also able to bring in a number of Satoru's works from collections here on Maui to both honor the original design of the exhibition and differentiate it in its second iteration. I think in this retrospective format of over 70 years of work, there are these striking moments of synergy and contrast in vantage points throughout the gallery that capture juxtapositions of different materials, sometimes threading together different eras of Satoru's career, or exploring variations in how he interpreted the themes he was working with.
He really impressed me with his joy, with his continuous desire to produce. He just seemed insatiable. When we finally opened the exhibition at HoMA, he came, he was happy with it, but the first thing he said to me was like, "Where are we putting my latest paintings?" We were opening that day, and he was trying to find a space to put, whatever he had been producing that week, because that is kind of his spirit, and it just reminds me of how important it is to lean into that creativity.